From Clayton County Sheriff's body camera, you can see the homeowner, Loletha Hale, taken away to jail. Not the alleged squatter.
You know, every once in a while, I see a story when I'm scrolling, and it'll just get me so hot that I'm like, I need to talk to somebody about this right now. What's up, everybody? Ty Rivera here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. All right, you guys, maybe this week the theme will be laws need to be changed, because if there were ever laws that needed to be changed, it is the squatting laws in Georgia. I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but it's happening a lot. People are able to somehow wedge their way into other people's property, and then the property owner gets treated like they're the criminal because they take what would be to most of us logical steps to take possession of their property. And stories like this make me crazy, because it's like this person, Loletha Harris is her name, has gone through all of the proper channels to get her property back. And the person that's staying at her property is technically what most of us would call a squatter, but for some reason a judge told this person they weren't a squatter. And then you're gonna see on the video that the police are also kind of enabling this situation and making this person that would be the squatter, Sakemyia Johnson, I believe is her name, feel like maybe she's kind of in the right. And I don't know when the police decided to start taking the side of the criminal, but apparently that's the world we're living in. So let's go through this video together and see if you guys are just as angry about it as I am. And also leave in the comments how you would handle this situation. Don't look to me for legal advice, because sometimes when I get angry, things don't stay legal.
They've been squatting, and if they have to get somebody killed, they'll do it.
Calm down.
Okay, so I'm gonna start off right away. That cop's little hands right there telling her to calm down, that's the property owner, Loletha. And with that cop's little hands right there telling her to calm down, all that would do was piss me off. I'd want to cut off his hands. I hope YouTube doesn't demonetize this video. This is just me being angry, but I would want to cut off his hands. If it were me, I'd be like, you keep your stupid hands out of my face, officer.
From Clayton County Sheriff's body camera, you can see the homeowner, Loletha Hale, taken away to jail. Not the alleged squatter at this Livingston Drive home.
She's going to be charged with criminal damage to property for all of your belongings. Criminal trespass as well for her coming in here.
Okay, so you just heard that. Those are the squatters that the police are talking to. So this woman is going to be charged with criminal trespass and property damage for trying to get somebody's stuff out of her place that is not supposed to be there. That you will find out was told by a judge that they weren't supposed to be there. And Loletha Hale was charged with making terroristic threats because she was heard on cell phone video from Sakemyia Johnson saying, "Leave before I get my gun." Which I don't know why she's getting a charge for that. I really think that the officer should have commended her for giving a warning that she might actually go grab her gun. I think she should have been commended for her restraint in not just going and getting her gun as soon as she realized that there were people in that house. Because as far as Loletha went, nobody was authorized to be in that house at that point. So anybody that is in that house, in her mind and in most people's minds, would be a trespasser. And at that point, shouldn't you be able to get your gun? Because there's somebody in there and you don't know what their intentions are. I'm sure she didn't know at first that it was Sakemyia Johnson. Maybe she saw her through the screen. Who knows? But when she warned her, which I don't consider a threat, I do consider that to be an actual warning. I really do feel like she should have been commended on not only being courteous enough to warn, but also her restraint in not just going and grabbing her gun. And even worse, doing something with her gun. Because a situation like this can really drive somebody over the edge. And I don't think a lot of these people that are playing right now are understanding that there are people that will get unhinged enough because of what they have been through as far as the rigmarole of the legal system. And who knows if she had to take time off work. I'm not just going to assume that Loletha is retired. She could still be a working woman and she's having to take time out of her life life, and more than likely it's not paid time off. It could be, but more than likely it's not. And even if it is paid time off, you're having to take vacation days in order to handle a court case for somebody that, I will repeat, should not be in your property, should not have possession of your home. So yeah, I can see how that might drive somebody over the edge. So Loletha ended up getting charged with criminal trespassing, again, on her own property. She got charged with criminal trespassing and the misdemeanor charge of terroristic threats. And then the squatter, Sakemyia Johnson, was charged with nothing. What a frustrating upside down and backwards world we live in.
I spent the night on a mat on a concrete floor in deplorable conditions while this woman, this squatter, slept in my home.
So that was Loletha. And Loletha, the homeowner, had to spend the night in jail.
Loletha Hale says this all started back in August when she called police after finding Sakemyia Johnson in the house.
How can she not be a squatter when I don't know this person? I've never had any type of contractual relationship with this person.
But a Clayton County magistrate judge ruled under the new Squatter Reform Act, Sakemyia Johnson did not qualify as a squatter because she is related to a previous evicted tenant's partner.
Okay, so you heard that right. She's related to a previous evicted tenant's partner. So not even related to the evicted tenant, which, if you ask me, once the tenant is evicted, they are no longer the tenant, and anybody that they brought with them needs to go. And I don't know exactly what the Squatter Reform Act is, but one thing that bothers me is in these situations, you'll read the comments and you'll see that there are people acting like the squatter, in this case Sakemyia Johnson, should have rights because she's been living there. And it's like, no, once the person that's actually paying the rent is no longer paying the rent and has been evicted, that is time for you to go as well. And if you know full well that you have not been paying this woman, Loletha Hale, any rent, you have no relationship with her, you know it's time for you to go. I don't even know where these people get the lack of conscience it would take in order for you to feel like you could stay in somebody's house that you had no contract with and also have not been paying rent to. Now, I could understand, I'm not saying it's right, but I could understand if this woman, Sakemyia Johnson, had just been paying the rent and pretending that she was the tenant. If she had just been sending money to Loletha Hale and Loletha didn't want to take her money and just wanted her out, I would still think that Loletha should be able to get her out of her house because she never took her on as a tenant. But at least I wouldn't feel like Sakemyia was a true piece of shit like I do right now. Because if you know full well that you have paid this woman a grand total of $0 directly or indirectly for the months since the other person has been evicted, because this actually took place this month, December, when they were having this situation and Loletha Hale had to go try to reclaim her property. It started in August. So for the last 4 months, you have not been paying rent, but for some reason you feel like you have rights to be in this woman's house?
I was written in citation about a lawful squatter and an order. A judge signed the order denying it, saying that I wasn't a squatter.
That started a multi-month court battle, filings and appeals. Johnson even filed for bankruptcy, listing Loletha Hale as her only creditor.
And I also read in another story that that's what's been holding up Loletha from being able to legally get Sakemyia out of the house, is that since Sakemyia filed for bankruptcy, that made it so they couldn't issue the writ that they needed in order to get Sakemyia out of the house legally. Because she filed for bankruptcy, that made it so everything had to be put on hold. Also makes no sense to me because, again, she was never the actual tenant. They never had a contractual agreement. So how is it that this person is able to squat in somebody's house and legally be protected? Have the judge actually say that you are not a squatter? How are you not a squatter when you're not paying rent and you never were a tenant? And I know somebody's going to give me some legal mumbo jumbo in the comments, and I welcome your comments. By the way, like, comment, and subscribe. We're on our way to 100,000 subscribers. We just just passed 60K. Big deal for me. Give it up, everybody. Give it up for yourselves for subscribing. Make sure you click the bell so you get all notifications and know when I'm going to upload. But anyway, I digress. This situation has me angry and full of emotion, so I'm sure some of you are going to tell me legally how this all worked out, and I welcome hearing it. But at the same time, sometimes you just want to be mad. You know, sometimes you just want to be like, what world are we living in right now that any of this makes sense to anybody on a legal or a moral level?
But November 18th, a magistrate judge ordered a final judgment in Hale's favor. Hale says she thought Johnson moved out.
I don't want to victim blame right here, but this is where I will say that I think Hale kind of messed up. And I get it if it's your first time dealing with this kind of situation. But as soon as the judge issued the order saying that she had to leave on November 18th, because this took place on December 10th, on November 18th, when Loletha was told that this woman, Sakemyia, did in fact have to leave her property, if I were Loletha, I would ask the judge at that point, okay, when exactly does she have to be out? Can I get any paperwork that I need in order to fully and legally facilitate this issued to me right now while I'm in front of you so that I don't have to come back and deal with this later? And then I would have made sure that Sakemyia and all her stuff was out of the house I own before I relaxed for that night. I would be like, okay, this is completely done. She's legally out. I would imagine the sheriff will have to go and remove her, and now I can relax. So, not to blame Loletha, but at the same time, these people are squirrely, and you got to make sure all your bases are covered so you don't end up in situations like this. So this is the only place that I would really, and I wouldn't even use the word blame, because you don't know how these crazy people are going to act. So I get where Loletha's like, I didn't know that this was going to be a thing. The judge said she had to go. I figured she would just go like a regular human being.
Returned on Monday to start painting, and she had broken the locks and re-entered my property.
And I did a little bit of reading on it, and I don't know what she's saying returned on Monday, because November 18th is a Monday, and then December 10th, which is when this actually went down, what we're seeing the footage of now, is just over 3 weeks later. I don't know why in those 3 weeks you wouldn't go check on your property. Again, I'm trying not to blame Loletha here, but I don't think she took the proper steps that she needed to take in order to make sure that this was resolved. I think that she just counted on the fact that Sakemyia would listen to what the judge has said, but I never trust anybody on situations like this, because no matter how dumb somebody acts or no matter how unaware of the way things work that somebody will act, you would be surprised how quickly they turn into Judge Judy when there's a scam on the line. When they're actually able to get over on somebody, suddenly everybody knows everything. I used to see this all the time in LA with the homeless people, because they're homeless, right? And their whole thing in some cases is that they're crazy. They don't know what's going on. And then the minute somebody tries to remove their dwelling, they suddenly become Perry Mason. I know, again, I'm dating myself, but if you remember Perry Mason, it was a good show. And I'm not old enough to remember like when Perry Mason was coming out with fresh episodes. I'm not that old, but I remember Perry Mason, and it was a good show. And these homeless people do suddenly become the great legal minds of our time when somebody's trying to tell them it's time to scoot.
She just pulled up out of nowhere, and she had this guy with him, and I locked the door. I locked the screen door, and he forced himself in.
Wait a second. You mean to tell me that Loletha had the nerve to just pull up to a property that she owns without checking in with a squatter that she thought was supposed to be gone as of November 18th? Well, you should have said that to begin with, Sakemyia. I hadn't realized you are actually in the right. You should be there occupying a place that you've paid $0 in rent for the last 4 months. That the judge told you it was time for you to go from. You're right. You should have gone in there, changed the locks like you did so that you were able to go ahead and continue to stay there, and you were within your rights to hold that screen door closed, because who is this person that's been authorized by the owner of the house to actually start doing a job in the house, whether it's painting or whatever they wanted to do to the house, when clearly you live there?
Telling us to get out.
Hale admits she is still waiting on a signed writ of possession, meaning she has no legal right to evict.
See, and that's exactly what I was saying. That's exactly where Loletha messed up, is she didn't get that all situated before leaving the courthouse. I don't know what you guys are like, but anytime I've ever had to go to court, because I hate being in court so much, I really have just tried to get everything secured as well as I possibly could, because I know that that process is so gummed up. Even under the best circumstances, it takes forever to get anything done in the court system. So I'm usually trying to be a one and done. Like, okay, I don't want to come back to this courthouse, so let me make sure that my T's are dotted and my I's are crossed.
We have to be notified of this. A writ has to be served, and we have to be involved in that for it to be a legitimate eviction.
Hi there, it's Justin Gray with Channel 2. No one answered at the home when we knocked.
Oh, really, Justin? Did you think they were going to answer and talk to you? Did you think they were just going to give you an interview? Trick question. They might have. People have a lot of balls these days. I wouldn't put it past Sakemyia to answer the door and make herself sound like a victim for the news, but she probably knows. Jig's up. Only so much time left. Clock is ticking. It's pretty much time.
The sheriff's deputy can be heard on body camera telling Hale to think of things from the alleged squatter's point of view.
But just think of it from this perspective, though. Everybody isn't as fortunate as you to have a bed. No, I'm just saying, a bed, the little things.
See, and that's where I feel like the officer is basically enabling, and why at the beginning I said I would be so mad if I had an officer talking to me like this, because obviously Sakemyia is out of sight at that point. So let's say they sent Sakemyia back in the house, and now she's standing at the door just trying to hear everything the cop is saying. Not that I would ever do that, but I'd imagine somebody would. So let's say Sakemyia is doing that. She's standing at the door listening to what the officer is saying, listening to what the exchange is, so she can further formulate her master plan, because there is definitely a plan in place here. I don't think the bankruptcy was just coincidental. I think that she knew that would buy her some extra time to find her next hustle. That's really the way I feel about it. Feel free to disagree with me if you want to, but that is 100% what I feel. So let's say she's on the other side of the door listening to this conversation happen, and so she's hearing the officer say, think about what she doesn't have. Think about how fortunate you are. Basically, you're in a privileged position because you can own a property and also conduct yourself like a regular human being, while this poor woman, Sakemyia, clearly has no resources and can't take care of herself. That's the guys that we're working under here. Well, Sakemyia is on the other side thinking to herself, he's right. I am the victim in this situation. How dare this mean woman try to get me taken out of this property that has clearly become my home. Whether or not I paid anything for it, she can obviously afford to have this property and another property that she lives at. Who knows what her financial situation is, but I know that it's better than mine. That to me is what the officer is saying will sometimes convey to a person that really is 100% in the wrong. I don't know how the officer could even take up for Sakemyia on any level. And if I were the officer and I was talking to Loletha, I would be like, look, I know this is wrong, but unfortunately for all of us, there is a legal process that has to be followed. So we need you to get that writ. And I know it can be frustrating waiting for it, but once you get the writ, we can definitely get her or them, because it looks like there was more than one person there, out of here. But we just have to wait for that writ. I know it's frustrating. I know it sucks. I know you're tired of dealing with the stress of this situation that you've done nothing to involve yourself in. But we do need to wait for this process to play out. So please, please, please just handle everything legally and we'll do our best to get you taken care of. That's what I would tell her, because taking the side of the person that is squatting, that is not doing the legally or morally correct thing, gives all parties involved the wrong idea about the way all of this is supposed to work out, or about the way that all of this is playing out.
To see that woman walk into my mom's house while I was in a police car, something is wrong with this picture. Something is inherently wrong with this picture.
Yes, ma'am, I could not agree more. Something is definitely wrong with this picture. You know, stories like this make it hard for me not to lose my faith in humanity to a certain degree, because you have a system that really is screwing over people that are at the very least paying their property tax. Because let's say Loletha Hale fully owns this property. She no longer has a mortgage on it. It is all profit for her when people rent this house from her. Let's say that is the situation under the most ideal circumstances, which doesn't necessarily have to be the case, because there are some people that will buy a property and then use renting it out in order to pay the mortgage and then hopefully clear a little bit of profit on top of that. But let's say she fully has paid it off and she has to pay her property taxes every year. Let's say that's the situation we're dealing with here. So at this point, you have somebody that is a citizen that is paying property taxes, that by rights should be able to take possession of this property that clearly nobody is paying rent on since August, and now we're in December, and is not able to do that because somebody feels entitled to having a place to live that they haven't paid for, that they're not paying for. And to me, that's what I find the most disappointing, is that this person, Sakemyia Johnson, doesn't have enough of a conscience or enough of a moral compass to say, you know what, I really am doing this lady wrong. And you can see clearly that Loletha is an older woman. So at what point do the laws start to reflect what people should do rather than just what people can get away with? Because the people that can get away with things legally will always try to get away with things legally. The people that can act like victims and be, woe is me, where am I gonna go now that I can't live in this place rent free? Well, you really should have been saving up money for the last 4 months since you haven't been having to pay rent. So I can't say that I feel bad for Sakemyia on any level. I really do feel like she's a scam and a hustle. And like I said, I feel like the bankruptcy she did on purpose just to hold off the process of her actually having to move out. Well, now it's done and it's over and it's time for you to go. And these laws really need to change so that they are in favor of the property owner. And I know why you have to go through an eviction process and everything like that, because there have been slum landlords and landlords that aren't the most scrupulous and will screw over tenants. So that part I understand. But when it gets to be a bit too much for me is when you have situations like this where it's not even the person that was on the lease. It is as removed as a person that is related to a person that was the partner of the person that got evicted. But what are you gonna do? This is a world we live in. Anyway, if you guys want to see more of me and my silly opinions, I know I was a little hot on this one. There are other ones where I've been more fun. I guarantee one of the ones on the screen will be just that. It'll be a fun one. It'll be one that has some levity, probably about Lily Tino. I can't guarantee, but if you see Lily Tino in either of these videos, click on that one. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. I appreciate you watching. As always, this has been Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.
They bought into his bullshit.